A few weeks ago, I outlined the signs of someone who can retire early. But unfortunately, retiring early is not always the best case for everyone. Today, we're going to outline 3 reasons why retiring early can lead your savings vanishing faster than you think. Every day, my company and I help retirees build long-lasting retirement plans that don't break the bank. Unfortunately, a current trend in the retirement space is people being told to retire as soon as possible, which dangerously leads them to enter retirement completely underprepared. In this video, we will explain the factors that could drain your retirement savings faster than you think and how to avoid them. The first obstacle is the sequence of returns risk. Experiencing a market drop in the early years of retirement can create problems that go well beyond the immediate hit to your portfolio. In fact, those who retire during a down market have a much higher chance of running out of money than those who retire in an up market. Let's think about it. If the market drops at the beginning of your retirement, your assets will be worth less and more will need to be sold to generate income. This can drain your savings more quickly and leave fewer assets to generate growth in the future. Furthermore, it prevents you from gaining back all that you lost during the market drop. Let's look at an example. On the left side is Susan's account and on the right side is Bob's. Let's say that they're 45 years old and they each have $500,000 saved. They're going to invest this money for 20 years. Susan earns 33% her first year, while Bob loses 28%. Conversely, Susan loses 28% in year 20, or her last year at age 65, while Bob gains 33% that same year. If you look closely enough, you'll see that their returns are actually exactly the same, but in reverse order. While they're investing, does it matter who earned 33% year 1 versus who lost 28%? Do the order of stock market returns matter while you're saving? No, they don't. It's like multiplication. It doesn't matter what order the numbers are in. Okay, now let's look at what happens once you start pulling an annual income stream. Jane is on the left and Jeff is on the right. They're both 65 years old with the same $500,000 nest egg. They each need $25,000 per year to fill their income gap, and that amount will need to inflate by 3% per year over the 20-year time span. Jane gains 33% in year 1, while Jeff loses 28%. Again, you'll see that their returns are exactly the same, but in reverse order. I'll ask you the same question I did before. Do the order of returns matter while you're pulling income? We can see here clearly that the answer is yes. The sequence of stock market returns do matter once you start to pull income. Jeff runs out of money at age 84 in year 19, while Jane has over $2 million in her account. This was mind-blowing to me the first time that I saw it. I just could not believe that 2 people in the exact same financial shoes could have 2 totally different outcomes depending on the order of their returns. You also might notice that Jane has several negative years in a row, years 12 through 14, yet she still has a robust nest egg. This is because once your first 5 years of retirement are over, your vulnerability to the sequence of returns risk actually decreases with each passing year. The later that negative returns impact your portfolio in retirement, the better. So, how do you know if you're vulnerable to this risk and how do you fight against it? First, you need to assess your portfolio allocation. What percentage is in stock versus bond versus completely fixed assets like high-yield money market, CDs, and fixed annuities? If you see that you're in mostly stock at the beginning of retirement, you'll want to make adjustments to protect yourself during your first 5 years. The best way to do this is to bucket your money upon retirement. I did a short but powerful video on this, and I recommend that you watch it after this video as it takes you through how to bucket your money step by step. Here's our framework. You'll create 3 buckets. 1 green, 1 yellow, and 1 red. The green bucket is for the money you'll need during the first 5 years of retirement, and these funds need to be completely fixed. This means cash, high-yield money markets, individual bonds, and CDs and fixed annuities. The yellow bucket is for the money you'll need between years 5 through 15 of retirement. At URS, we typically use a 65%, 35% bond approach to this bucket, and we use a mix of treasury bonds, high-yield individual bonds. We also just started using bond funds, longer-term CDs, and fixed annuities. We also have index funds and dividend-paying stocks to make up that 65% stock portfolio. Lastly, the third bucket, or the red bucket, is the money that you won't need to touch for at least 15 years. This is your long-term bucket, and as such needs to be invested exclusively in stocks, some real estate, and perhaps a small allocation to more volatile alternatives. Why 15 years? Because the S&P 500 index has never lost over a 15-year time frame. Historically, 15 years has given us plenty of time to recover if we experience a major bear market lasting several years in a row. This bucket is all gas, no brakes, and has the potential for big growth over the long term. This process protects your nest egg from vanishing due to the sequence of returns risk. Okay, the second obstacle to an early retirement is the "I'll figure out taxes later" oversight. Unfortunately, in retirement, income tax is not the only tax you need to worry about. Once you join Medicare, you'll also need to worry about something called IRMAA, or the Income-Related Medicare Adjustment Amount, which is basically an extra fee that you may have to pay on your Medicare Part B and D premiums. This surcharge is based on your single or joint modified adjusted gross income, or your MAGI, from 2 years prior. And if it's above the base level, which in 2024 is $103,000 for a single filer and $206,000 for a joint filer, you will pay more for your Medicare Part B and D premiums. For example, let's say that you're turning 65 this year and you file jointly. Your 2022 modified adjusted gross income was $260,000. This means that your Medicare Part B premium will be $349.40 per month each, instead of the base premium at $174.70. Guys, this is twice what you would pay if your income fell below that $206,000 level. Not to mention the fact that you'll also pay an extra $33.30 on your Part D drug plan premium. This is an extra $2,500 per year per person and $5,000 per year if you're married. Though this is not an official tax, because it's based on income, it essentially acts like one. These charges can be shocking to a new retiree and must be accounted for in your financial analysis. Fortunately, there are circumstances where you can appeal the IRMAA surcharge, and I outline this in detail in my video here. If you think you might be affected by these charges, watch my video right after this one to learn if you qualify for an appeal and the step-by-step instructions to do so. Okay, now let's discuss the main source of tax in retirement, income tax. Having large pre-tax retirement accounts is the biggest source of persistent high taxes. Unfortunately, most people mistakenly believe that deferring income tax is somehow the same thing as not paying taxes at all, so they contribute only to their pre-tax accounts and grow these large tax bombs, as I refer to them. Remember, every dollar that you pull from these pre-tax accounts is taxed as ordinary income at whatever future tax rates are, and this pushes you into higher tax brackets and exacerbates the IRMAA surcharge I just discussed. By the way, being forced to pull income from these pre-tax retirement accounts to meet your expenses is not appealable. Many people also believe that their tax rate will be lower in retirement, but that's clearly not true if you're used to a certain lifestyle and if the bulk of your savings is pre-tax. Not to mention the required minimum distributions that are due starting at age 73 or 75, depending on your year of birth. Right now, we're in one of the lowest tax regimes in history. So it's important to take advantage of this as much as possible while you're still working and in those early years of retirement before RMDs are due. For example, let's say that you have a traditional 401k worth $2.5 million and you're in the 24% tax bracket. How much of that 401k do you actually own? Well, only $1.9 million, as $600,000 will go straight to the IRS. And this is if tax rates stay level over your retirement. However, if you saved in a Roth 401k, all $2.5 million would be yours tax-free. You might respond by saying that, hey Julia, if I had $2.5 million in a Roth 401k, well then I would have missed out on all of those tax savings over the years, right? While you were working, the tax deductions. And this is true, but let's do some rough math to better understand this concept and how it applies in retirement. Let's say that you're 30 years old and that you have 35 years until you retire and you're in the 24% tax bracket. You will contribute $19,500 per year to your traditional 401k, and your average rate of return is 7% per year. In 35 years, your 401k will be worth over $3.1 million. Let's assume that your tax rate upon retirement is also 24%. Remember, when you're used to a certain lifestyle and your main source of income is 100% taxable as ordinary income, it's really hard to end up in a lower tax bracket once you retire. At 24%, this means that you'll actually own roughly $2.4 million of the over $3.1 million due to federal income tax. Okay, now let's look at what happens if you had contributed to a Roth 401k instead. The contributions go in after tax, so you won't save that $4,600 each year on the deduction for those 35 years. And if you had invested that $4,680 at the same 7% rate of return, that's a missed savings of over $761,000. But with a Roth 401k, you will own all of that $3.1 million tax-free. However, we need to subtract those missed total savings of $761,945 from the total, and we actually end up with this exact same net amount as the traditional 401k at roughly $2.4 million. Now you might say, why did you go through that entire exercise if you end up with the same net amount of money? Well, that's because there are three very important missing pieces to this equation once you retire. The first is IRMAA surcharges that will be due on a 401k this large providing income, and this can add thousands of dollars to your bills every single year of retirement. The second is increased taxes due on your Social Security income. When you pull income from Roth accounts, it's actually invisible on your tax return, which means that it can be really easy to pay $0 in tax, including on your Social Security income. When you pull from pre-tax accounts, it's almost impossible not to pay income tax on 85% of your Social Security income, adding additional thousands of dollars onto your annual spend. The third missing piece is the risk of future higher tax rates. In our previous example, we assumed that tax rates would stay level. However, as I said earlier, we're in one of the lowest tax regimes in history. Looking at this chart here, we can see that marginal tax rates have been as high as 94%. This was in 1944. In 2024, the highest marginal tax rate is 37%. In other words, don't discount the probability of tax rates being higher in the future. So what are some solutions to this pre-tax only problem? Well, first, you'll want to review your employer benefits and strongly consider contributing some of your savings to a Roth 401k. Secondly, you may want to consider Roth conversions. In our practice, we use sophisticated software to determine the ideal amount to convert each year to minimize lifetime taxes. Next, if you make too much to directly contribute to a Roth IRA, research the backdoor Roth IRA to see if you qualify. And how about a health savings account? Are you on a high deductible health plan this year? If you're on a family plan that's high deductible, you can invest up to $8,300 per year per family, or $9,300 if you're 55 or older. These funds grow tax-free when used for health expenses, and I made a video all about the power of HSAs here, so be sure to check that out after this video. Next, reconsider conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom states that you should draw income from your taxable investments first, followed by pre-tax, followed by Roth IRAs. At URS, we beat conventional wisdom in many ways, one of which is pulling from retirement accounts pre-tax first, as you were in a lower tax bracket immediately upon retirement and were at the lowest tax rates in history. Filling up your bucket or tax bracket with pre-tax withdrawals is another way to make the most of your lower tax bracket. Lastly, consider qualified charitable distributions. If you're charitably inclined and at least 70 and a half years old, you can donate up to $105,000 per year indexed annually to an eligible charity directly from your pre-tax retirement account using what's called a qualified charitable distribution. This donation is not taxable to you as it's going directly from your custodian to the charity, thus preventing you from being thrust into a higher tax bracket, and it goes to the charity tax-free, not to mention it prevents phase-outs of other tax deductions. Okay, the third major obstacle to an early retirement is the "I'll spend less in retirement" myth. When I first started studying income planning to get my certified financial planner designation, almost every example had the retiree spending 80% of their pre-retirement income. At that time, I was just getting started in the business, so I was naive to what actually happens to spending when you first retire. And I think that a lot of people also falsely believe that they'll spend less once they retire. Maybe your mortgage or other high debt expense will be paid off, or maybe you just think that you'll be able to easily adjust to a lower lifestyle. And while the overall trend of your spending does decrease over your entire retirement, right, 25, 30 years, your spending actually increases for the first 5 to 10 years of retirement, otherwise known as your go-go years. And here's why. First, when you were working 40 hours a week, that was 40 hours a week that you were not traveling, shopping, and generally consuming, i.e. spending money. Secondly, many new retirees have put off renovating or even just maintaining their home until retirement. I'm talking new windows, new kitchens, bathrooms, new roofs, etc. These expenses can really sneak up on you, especially since the costs have inflated over the years. For instance, the average cost of a new roof 10 years ago was a little over $15,000, whereas today the average cost is $23,000. That's a nearly 50% increase over 10 years. Clearly, these big chunks of money can eat into your savings very quickly. Here's an example. Kathy just retired at 65 with liquid investable assets of $750,000. She spends $65,000 per year. However, she needs to make several improvements to her home: hurricane windows, bathroom renovations, and a new roof. She'd also like to spend $8,000 per year traveling during her first 5 years. If she spreads these costs out at $25,000 extra per year for the first 5 years, her Monte Carlo chances of success decrease from 100% down to 76%. If you've watched my previous videos, you know that we look for a percentage of success of 85% or higher. We can see graphically how quickly her savings vanish in this situation and how it really hurts her chances of success in retirement. Now, if you've been taking care of these home maintenance costs during your working years or right before you retire, and if you've saved specifically for higher consumption in retirement, then you may have nothing to worry about. However, if you're like most, you need to make sure that your projected expenses account for an increase during the first 5 to 10 years of retirement, and that your Monte Carlo chances of success are at least 85%. Maybe this means that you need to decrease spending in another area, or maybe you can afford to spend more than you thought you could. You'll also need to stress test your scenarios against bear markets, higher than expected inflation, and long-term care events. It's very difficult to do an analysis this thorough without the help of a certified financial planner, so don't hesitate to interview a few to find one that suits your needs and your personality best. This is exactly what my team and I do every day, and our clients feel so much relief once we run their numbers. So now you know a few factors to consider before deciding to retire. However, there are details that we haven't been able to cover in this short video. If you want a team of professionals to analyze your situation and understand how to time your retirement to meet your goals, click the link in the description. It will take you to a page where you can book a completely free consultation with us, where we can begin to help you build the retirement of your dreams.